Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to watch my video. I really appreciate it, and I know I've been gone for a little bit, but I promised I would be back in my previous video, and I am, and I'm hoping to do a lot more videos now that my life is a little bit more stable. But today I'm doing a video request, and it's actually a really great one, and I have been meaning to do a similar one before the video was actually requested. And the request was to do a video about how to find more time to read. And I know all of us have really busy lives, whether you have school, whether you have work, family obligations. You know, there's always so many activities that fill up our days, and at the end of them, sometimes we realize we have this shelf full of novels that we've been meaning to read, or there's a book that really you've been starting and then kind of forgetting about. And it's kind of an opportunity for me to offer my perspective on how I personally find time and motivation to read. And before I start, I just want to tell you this is just my take on it. Some of the things that I might say may not be completely new to you, but hopefully these tips will be helpful to not only find the time in your day, but also the motivation, because reading is just such an amazing thing. It's really one of the great pleasures of life, and really does not require a lot of money. And it may require some time, but it's just such a well spent amount of time that generally it won't drain you. It will just energize you, it'll inspire you, it'll make you happy potentially. So before I ramble on and on too much, let me go ahead and get started. And I thought about 6 tips, I guess, if you will, for finding more time and motivation to read. And I'll be looking down because I wrote them down. And let me just get started with the first one. And it is to start with an exciting book. I know this may sound strange to some of you. I know a lot of us may have this great novel that we're meaning to read, or some of us might think, okay, well, I have to read all of Shakespeare's work. Or some novel like Ulysses by James Joyce, which is a very complex, very complicated work that people actually like take classes just to like learn more about that novel. And there are many like that, and a lot of times, if you haven't been reading for a while, if you're looking for a way to start back on your on reading more, I would recommend starting with a book that's not necessarily that great work of art or literature that that you've always wanted to read. Start with something that's more easygoing, more of an easy read, more of a kind of guilty pleasure, like a summer book or something that's really easy to read. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you don't like. It's just we all have those kind of guilty pleasures or books that are not necessarily great works of literature, but are just really enjoyable and really easy to read. And what I found for me is when I haven't been reading for a long time, for whatever reason, it helps me to start with kind of a more easy book, not so complex, not so complicated, just like an easy summer read. And I find that once I finish that, my hunger for reading is so intensified. It's like an appetizer before a meal. You know, it kind of gets you started, and it like makes you anticipate what's coming next. And that's the same. I guess it works the same way for me. Is if you haven't been reading for a long time, don't start with something complicated. Start with something really more easy, more pleasurable, just to get you started back into reading. The second tip that I wanted to share with you is more in terms of finding the time. And this is something that might sound very common sense, yet I don't know if a lot of people actually do that. But the second tip is to take whatever book you're reading with you. And that counts especially if you're going to work, if you're going to school, because time and time again you'll find in your day that you have those extra 10-15 minutes waiting somewhere at the end of class. Let's say you're in high school and you just finished your test and everyone else is still working. Just pull out your book and read. Or if you're waiting at the doctor's office, or if you're in college and you have some time between classes and you kind of don't really know what to do with it, just take your book and it will add these great moments of pleasure in your day and just kind of help you de-stress and escape a little bit into the world of a particular novel you're reading or whatever book you're reading. And I have done this, and I am doing this with the book I'm currently reading. I have been taking it to work, and I actually already read a third of it just from reading it at lunch, because a lot of times, you know, if I'm not having lunch with someone else, I'll just be eating by myself and I'll be done with lunch and I have all this time left to myself, and I'll just go ahead and continue on reading. And it's so great, and I really found that it de-stresses me so much. And at the same time, that book, that's the only time I've been reading it, and I'm already done with more than 100 pages just from reading it for just a couple of weeks at lunch. So really, it's just, you don't have to have, what it comes down to is you don't have to have these huge chunks of time in your day, like 2-3 hours where you can sit down and read. A lot of times that's not possible for a lot of us because we're so busy. But, you know, those 10, 15, 20 minutes interspersed within your day, you can probably find that time. And while you could be like kind of doodling on your phone or playing a game or kind of wondering what to do, you could just pull out your book and read, and it will just be such a great thing. And I've really enjoyed doing this, and I've been doing this for a while now. The third tip that I wanted to share with you guys, and that's also concerning finding time, is, and I think this is a really important tip for a lot of us, is to swap with other entertainment. And what I mean by that is, a lot of us watch TV. A lot of us have either a show that we really love, or we just like to, at the end of the day, just kind of sit on the couch. We're really tired. We don't really feel like being productive or doing anything, you know, any work in our home or anything like that. We just want to sit in front of the TV and just kind of like flip through channels, and we don't necessarily have a show that we're watching. It's just kind of flipping through channels, and I feel like a lot of people do that. Why not take that time to, not for that entire time, but just start with, like, let's say 15 minutes a day. Just take that time that you would otherwise be flipping through channels or watching a show that you're not particularly fond of, but you just kind of sit through it. Why not take those 15 minutes and sit down and start that book you've been meaning to read? And I really find that once I personally start with like 10-15 minutes, it's just so much easier to continue. And I'm thinking, wow, why was I watching all those TV shows that I didn't particularly care about, that weren't even that entertaining, sitting through those commercials, when this book is so amazing and I just feel so great reading it, rather than feeling like my brain is kind of slowing down and not really functioning while I'm watching TV. And I really think that this is really important, because a lot of people kind of spend a lot of time either browsing on the internet through stuff that they don't particularly, or they're not particularly looking for something, but they just want to be entertained, or watching TV to be entertained, or playing a video game or whatever. If that's not making you feel that content and satisfied at the end of it anyway, why not try to take a chunk of that time and dedicate it to reading a book? And I think that if you're like me, and I think if you're like most people, you'll find that you feel so much better after reading rather than after doing other more passive forms of entertainment. Alright, so the fourth tip I wanted to share is to create a ritual around reading. And what I mean by that is, find that special place, whether it's a quiet place or whatever you envision to being the perfect, most reading conducive environment. And for me, it is sitting in that bed right there with a cup of tea, a blanket, and just my book. And it's just the most fantastic thing I could ever think of. It's so relaxing. It's so comforting. It's amazing. It's really like going to paradise, and I haven't left and I haven't gone anywhere. It's like a vacation in my own room. It's so great. And for others it might be something else. For example, like some people might like to read in a park if it's nice outside. Some people might like a coffee shop, getting some coffee, sitting down. You know, the noise in the background is helpful. It helps them concentrate. Whatever you might have in mind, I think it's really important to create that nice ritual, that thing that kind of accompanies your reading, that makes it more fun and more enjoyable and more of a environment that's conducive to reading. I think that's really great, and it's one of the great things about reading as well. Another tip I wanted to share with you guys is to set goals about your reading. You don't have to follow this goal, or you don't have to follow any of the goals. You can pick and choose whichever ones you want to follow. But for some people it might be helpful to set goals. For example, this month I'm going to read this book, or today I'm going to read these many pages, if that's helpful to you. However, I have a big kind of caveat to let you know about, is that sometimes doing that can make reading seem more like a chore and another item on your to-do list that you kind of have to do, and it's going to turn into like, it's going to possibly turn it into a less pleasurable activity, just because it's something that you kind of planned out to do and set out to do. And I find that sometimes with some people, and with me certainly many times, if I set too many specific goals, I get more overwhelmed, and reading is becoming less of a pleasurable entertainment and more of a kind of educational goal, or just another item on my to-do list it's kind of adds to my stress. So if it helps you to set goals and you love doing that, that's awesome. More power to you. I really admire that. But be careful with that. Don't try to make reading a chore. That's basically the warning that I was trying to tell you guys. And last but not least, my my sixth tip for finding more time, more motivation to read is to find friends that love books. That one might be kind of tricky, you know, and there's so many ways that could be enacted. You know, if you have friends that are close to you that love reading, why not ask them for recommendations? Why not read the same books at the same time? You could even consider starting your own book club, whatever you have time for. I realize this tip is more like, you know, if you don't want to do it, you definitely don't have to. But I think it definitely helps to have friends that love reading as well. And if you don't have those people in your life, there's plenty of YouTube channels with people that love books. There's websites. There's all these things that you could get. Good book recommendation, discuss your favorite books, and that kind of adds motivation, adds a little bit of socializing into your reading. And I think that's really, really great. So that is all for my tips. I really hope you guys found something helpful in this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any more video requests, definitely let me know. It was so great talking to you guys again. I'm really, really hoping to make more frequent videos. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.